One of the merit points because I didn't dunk. When I get to 10, then I'm on probation.
Good evening, everyone. We'll be starting in a few minutes.
Well, sometimes we do that. We'll be 30 days back. For the first
Crazy there. Yeah, a bunch of 24-year-olds. What about you? You stay out and I get your money. You're not the one that was right.
I know. Is she doing it next week? No, mom's going back. Yeah, I've been in some. I was been in some other things. Mom wants to go. Ella gets a little nervous. But right. Oh yeah. No, I guess that's a shock.
Yeah, they talked about it.
She's done it right now. She's probably she's a smart kid. Yeah, I know. That's okay. Yeah, she was better by herself. Yeah, she really made me. Yeah, she should go to practice. She was dirty practice. She loves it. She loves it. She told me that she might actually I need to get
my grandson is at
Take a picture out of your phone and put it on the wall.
they got a lot of
So I think I'm on the learning, you know, what's the value proposition? Well, when you buy a frame, it's going to watch the frame and use it 11 by 17 paper on your copy.
I actually just ran my voice up. Yes, that's
Alrighty, how's everybody doing today? Crickets.
wonderful.
Alright, so who's ready to get started? So as you all may know, my name is Zuli. I am the president of the Young Professionals Group here. And then we have...
My name is Adriana. I'm the vice president. I'm Margaret. I'm secretary, and Monty was not able to join us today, but he is our treasurer.
Alrighty, and I just want to thank a few people. So please give a round of applause for the Chamber, who is our main supporter. Marie is hiding in the back over there. But thank you to the Chamber for backing us, and we are able to provide the event for everybody here because they trusted us to be able to carry it out. And then I also want to thank Mega Workplace, George, for creating a space where we hold such great events. And I don't know if you would like to give us a couple of words there.
Well, welcome everybody, and just a little quick background. This is a building that myself and Pam had a vision to create an atmosphere for collaboration in a workplace and to foster entrepreneurship, to learn from each other and build everybody together, lift all the boats with the tide together. And certainly today I couldn't be more honored to have Fred here. I think I've known him, what did we say, 30-some years, more than we probably want to admit. But he looks a lot better than I do. I didn't age as well as he did. But enjoy yourselves. We've got several different events that occur here throughout the week all the time. Million Cups every Wednesday is huge. It is growing out of control. And there's just a lot to do, a lot of choices to get support. So thank you for being here, and if you need help, this is a place to go. Thank you.
And then we also have to give a great round of applause to our caterer tonight, which is Dos Salas Latin Cafe. It's Jared right there. And just as if you haven't taken a look at our PowerPoint, Jared is also going to be our speaker for next event because he has a double identity. And I found out about it not too long ago, so if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Yes, so I am the co-founder of Dos Salas Latin Coffee. We're a mobile coffee shop. We do events in all around Lake County and Seminole County and Orange County. And then when I'm not doing that, I serve as a professor of business and organizational leadership at Valencia College. And that's my full-time gig. And so, yes, I have a double identity. And there's the other guy. That's what he looks like when he's at work.
Nice.
The slightly less fun work, but just as important. So thank you very much.
And last but definitely not least, we have the United Southern Bank. Acronyms are not my forte, I'm terribly sorry. But we have Roxy, who's going to give you a few words on what they do.
Good evening, everyone. How are you?
Hi, Roxy.
We're glad to support this very much needed young professionals for our area. I brought with me today young professionals. The bank believes in that. United Southern Bank has been around since 1937. We have 12 locations, 2 satellite. We're community banking and believe in giving back. So we're so excited to invest here tonight. Looking forward to the speaker.
Whoop, whoop.
All right, and so I know that a lot of you may have heard about Young Professionals, and just to give you a brief overview about what we do here, we have here in our PowerPoint, would you be able to put up the mission statement, just so you can kind of take a look at it, but in a glance, our goal here was to, you already have Mega Workplace, you have the Chamber, you have all of the tools that you need to be successful in your profession and as an entrepreneur. But I believe that a big part of being an entrepreneur is having the inspirational aspect of yourself be fed as well. So what better way to get fed than, getting inspired by people who have been successful in their trades and people who can bring you value based on what they speak. So our mission statement is to engage and empower young professionals by creating a space where we offer opportunities to grow their potential, network, gain visibility, and give back to the community, which is really what we're trying to do here. George set a really great example with Pam to give back to the community, and we want to give back and keep that rolling, keep that snowballing. Because as you know, Eustis and overall Lake County is growing so much, and then just being able to do that for the community is essentially what's going to keep it going. So thank you all for being here, and I won't keep you too much longer, but let's introduce Fred, who is the CEO of FMK Group.
Hi everybody, thank you for having me here. I'm humbled and honored to be part of this event tonight. Thank you.
Now, Fred, just for anybody who's here that doesn't really know FMK Group, and would you be able to give us a brief overview of what FMK Group does?
We're FMK Restaurant Group. We have 10 restaurants right now in the villages. We're 2 under construction, and not sure where I'm going to draw the line. At some point I got to stop, but I'm going to keep growing for a while. Primarily in the villages, all of our restaurants are.
And would you give us a little overview about your background?
I'm originally from Iran. I was sent to America at age 12 years old by my parents, by myself. And my parents put me on a plane and said, "Don't worry, we're coming right behind you." And they never came. So I grew up in Mount Plymouth. I went to a boarding school in Mount Plymouth, which is right down the street from here. And the school's no longer there. And that's where I grew up. And shortly after I came here, the war broke back home. My parents lost everything they had. And literally, with one phone call, my dad says, "You're on your own." At this point, I was 17. My dad said, "You're on your own. Cannot send you any money." I said, "Dad, what am I supposed to do?" He said, "Figure it out." Wow. And I had graduated high school. There was a lot of, I'm originally from Iran, so at the time there was not a good environment for Americans and Iranians, and I had a hard time finding a job. And I went to a McDonald's on Fowler Avenue in Tampa, and literally begged the manager at McDonald's. If you can imagine begging somebody to get a job at McDonald's. And he hired me. But he told me, he said, "These are some rules. You don't tell anyone where you're from. You don't talk to anyone. Your job is going to be in lobby duty." Lobby duty at McDonald's is you empty the garbage, you clean the restrooms, you pick the parking lot, and by the time you finish, you got to go back and do it all over again. Don't tell anyone where you're from. Got it. And so that's how I got started in the restaurant business. Slowly forced into it, but I loved it. I loved every part of it. The best, can I stand up here? The best part that I loved more than anything else was I got a free meal. And when you're hungry, a free meal goes a long, long way. And so that's how I got my start in this business, and I've loved it ever since. So. My answer.
And so how did FMK Group come to fruition?
So from McDonald's, I moved on, started working at Ponderosa Steakhouse. At Ponderosa Steakhouse, I moved up. I was in the dish room, washing dishes, and one day the line cook doesn't show up, and he asked me to jump on the line and help cook. Did that. Next thing you know, I was the line cook. Next thing you know, I was a shift supervisor, a restaurant manager, moved to Orlando, and got a job with a Sizzler franchisee, and who was really struggling. And I said, I can do this for you. And really, really worked hard. And one day he came up to me and said, "I'm going to give you a piece of the business because you turned my company around." That's where I met George right away at the Sizzlers.
I was eating.
And started building the business, and we did that for 20 years. And in that time, I made a name for myself in the restaurant business, and the villagers had contacted me for opportunities in the villages, and my first response was, no thank you, I'm good. I had 3 restaurants and I drive, and all these different locations I had, and I still own a piece, very, very small piece of it. The villages was very inviting to come try it out. They gave me lots of opportunities, and I kept turning it down. And one day they said, listen, we'll build a restaurant for you. We heard about you. We'll build a restaurant for you, and you don't have to guarantee the lease. Wow. Now, personal guarantee on the lease, if you don't know, it can be the death of you in business. If it doesn't succeed, you personally guarantee that you can lose your home over it. You can lose everything you have. So at that point, I had nothing to lose. And I told the villagers, yeah, I'll take it. And that's how we opened up with 1 restaurant, and 1 led to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4, and so on and so on and so on. So that's how my success in the restaurant came about in the villages.
Is that first restaurant still?
The first restaurant still there, Bonifay Country Club was the first restaurant, and then we did Evans Prairie Country Club, Belle Glade Country Club, their original country club, Orange Blossom. They reopened it, and I opened it, but I never got the big dogs. The big dogs were all the squares. The corner restaurants and the squares in the villages. If you've ever been to the squares, there was one, I said, I can turn that thing around. There's nothing wrong with it. And the villagers looked at me and go, yeah, but it's a corner restaurant. We want you to put money into it, blah, 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 blah. I said, you know what? Just, you've taken a chance on me before. Let me have this corner. I'll show you around. And that was Bluefin. Had been 2 other restaurants prior and had failed miserably. I took it, and it's doing over $6 million in revenue in that 1 restaurant. And there was this, Bruce can tell you, because apparently he's been following me. He's a good salesman. Persistence. Chop House had previously been TGI Fridays, had been Guy Fieri's, Honest John's, several other restaurants, and they all had failed. And I told the villagers, I can turn that around. At this point, they had a lot more faith in me. And they said, sure, take it. And we opened it, and that's doing $6 million. Wow. And so on and so on. That's how we got to this. And now it's that point where I don't have to ask, they ask. You build a name for yourself. That's the one thing that I always understood. I learned from my father. My father was dying, and he died a couple years ago, and he was felt awful on his deathbed that he was never able to do anything for me. And I said to him, Dad, you taught me how to fish. That's a hell of a lot better than handing you fish. I can hand you 20 loaves of fish. It won't last very long, because sooner or later it's going to run out. But learn how to fish, and that's what he taught me.
Thank you. Yes.
What do you think was a turning point in you realizing how to make these endeavors so successful? What were some of the early stage things that you emphasized on that you thought would lead to your success? I mean, obviously the Villages has a lot of revenue, so you had all the opportunity, but you had to do something more than the guy down the street. What's the lesson that we can share, that you can share with us as to some of the key things that turned you there?
I dived into it. I owned it. I lived it. I breathed it. I interviewed every single person, not these days anymore, because we have a management team that handles that. But I really was very focused on who we hired, who represented me, my values, and made sure that was passed down. And I think that was a little bit of craziness. I can do it. I can do it. I mean, I've never taken a 3-point shot, but I can do this. I can do this. And before you know it, you got to believe in yourself. If you don't believe in you, who's going to believe in you? Nobody's going to believe in you unless you believe in yourself. And I really believed in myself because I truly felt like I could do it. And that's half the battle. You must believe to achieve. I had a sign over my desk. I had a couple of, my office that I drive used to have a sign over desk. Two things. One out of my hate, I took it down, was only the paranoid survive, which is a lot of truth to that, right? I said, only the paranoid survive. And the second one was, you must, and it's a terrible way to live, being paranoid. I'm not recommending that. But a little bit of paranoia is pretty good. It goes a long ways. And the second sign was, you must believe to achieve. If you don't believe it, you're never going to get there. And yes, some of it is dream, and not all dreams come true. And thank God for some of the dreams that didn't come true. So that's the way.
How many hours did you work in the game?
Well, I don't recommend it. I put a lot of hours in. I sacrificed a lot. I felt like my children are very successful, but I felt like I shorted them a lot. And I tell them about it. They're very gracious to me now, and they go, "No, Dad, you're an awesome dad." But I felt like I could have spent more time with them. But I went in deep end.
You showed them how to fish.
Yeah, I showed them how to fish, and I went into the deep end of the pool, and that's the only way to go. Don't swim in the shallow end. Don't, I had a saying, I used to sing this song, I'm not going to die. When you're in business, you're going to go through some dark days, some really, really dark, nasty days. And I always told myself, I'm not going to die in shallow waters. I'm going to die in deep waters, because go big or no,
And touching base on that, I know that, entrepreneurship is not easy. It's all rainbows and sunshine.
Yeah, right.
But I wanted to touch base on how you were able to handle some of those setbacks and, those, tough moments, being in the shallow waters, but still feeling like, you're in the deep end.
That company, the Sizzler that I was telling y'all about, I know I got a bunch of bankers here, so I got to be careful when I talk about bankers. I love your bank. I know a bunch of people. So that, and I was, get a lawyer. Yep, they have the right to do it. We're going to fight him. So 2007, I felt like Job in the Bible. Anyone heard that story? Every phone call, every single phone call was a disaster, after disaster. And went through some great, my wife left me in the middle of it all, and lost the business. And it was crazy, it was wild. We negotiated with the bank, basically walked away with peanuts compared to what it was worth. It was worth $47 billion. We're doing in revenue, it's big money. Walked away with peanuts and started all over again. But those years from 2000, my recession started in 2007. So those 4 years was very, very, very dark. But someone told me one thing that I've said it to myself 1,000 times over and over again. The person told me, your darkest hour only has 60 minutes. Sooner or later, these dark clouds are going to go. I didn't believe them. I didn't believe them. How can you say that? But I kept telling them those words, repeating myself. I started believing it. I just told myself over and over, this cannot last forever. Well, the opportunities came in the villages, and I jumped on it. I tried one restaurant with no personal guarantee and no loan, no debt. I have bankers call me all the time. Want to loan me money. And I tell them, no thank you. So my company is debt free and has no guarantee on it. Nothing against banks, nothing against debt, nothing. You gotta have some debt. You gotta borrow money. You might even have to personally guarantee something. But as soon as you can get out of it and live in a lean, mean way, that's the way to go. And don't owe anyone to anything. Yes, sir.
So you had to restart your entire career after 2011. So my question for you is, for the young professionals, what's your thoughts on being afraid to fail or not being afraid to fail?
But believe it or not, failure is a good thing. I hate to say it like that, but that's, it's a lesson. It's really a good lesson. If you can get yourself back up. And so let me rewind a little bit. So I come to the villages. I don't have what I need to do to get this thing opened up. I called my produce company that I bought produce for 30 years. I said, Rick, I need a line of credit. And I promise you I'll pay you. I don't have anything to show you right now, but I will pay you. And he says, Fred, you got it. No questions asked, you got it. So I went to all my vendors and had built such a reputation with them. So they stood by me. And I hit it out of the gate because I lived in it. I lived in the restaurant from morning till night until we got to a point where we needed to be successful.
You know, we say, and I've said it to the group, we learn nothing from our success compared to what we learn from our failures.
Absolutely, I agree. Failure is what's going to teach you. So don't look at failure as a bad thing. It's really a good thing, as long as you can learn from it.
And what are some of the qualities that you think that a person needs to kind of survive moments of failure?
Don't listen to yourself. Talk to yourself. Tell yourself what's going to happen. Because if you listen to yourself, garbage gets in your head, and you start believing that garbage. When you talk to yourself, it's a little different. Almost sound like a crazy person who's driving down the road and telling yourself the same thing over and over again. And I think that was a huge part of it. One of the things, again, I'm not going to die in shallow waters. I'm not going to die here. I'm going to make it. And you got to believe it.
Thank you. And so we talked about, the qualities that somebody has to have to get out of those hard times. What do you think, quality-wise, an entrepreneur must have to become successful?
Guts. Guts to pull the trigger, guts not to be afraid, and you're gonna fail. So, but you gotta have guts. And a strong network of people around you that believe in you and support you and lift you up when you're down.
Calculating those risks?
I'm sorry?
Is there a level of calculating in those risks?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. You have to calculate. Absolutely. Yeah.
So how do you know if it's the right thing to do or not?
I think the biggest thing for the young is surround yourself with people that know a lot and ask lots of questions. So I break my life into 3 sections, and he can relate because we're almost the same age. I said, the first third of my life was learning. The second was earning. And the third is returning. And us old guys love helping young people. Because how much money can you make? And how much money can you take with you? And the only thing is what you do, the impact that I can make in your life while I'm still here. So this is what this is about. And I think for you, George, is returning, giving back, and leaving an impression for young people.
Money is important, and it obviously has a place, but you do get to a point, and it's a weird feeling, but you do get to a point where money isn't important anymore. People say, well, that's easy because you've got money, but that's not really where it comes from. It comes from looking at the whole picture and seeing things that you can do. And the best gift you can ever give somebody is knowledge, and give them something that they can never repay.
That's right.
That you can never get a favor back for. Is to give something to somebody that they can never repay.
And you've touched base on those 3 phases in your life. Would you be able to elaborate a little bit more? Like in the first phase of learning, what should an entrepreneur be doing right now to get through that phase? We have a lot of young professionals here, and what should they be doing to get ready for the earning?
Ask lots of questions. Don't waste your time. Time is so valuable. Focus on what matters to you and what's going to get you there. And that's going to be surrounding yourself with the right people and making sure you're like a sponge and asking lots of questions. That's the preparation for, that's the learning part, you know, is learn all you can and read. Read. Self-improvements. You know, I can't tell you how many self-improvement books I have on my shelf, but it's essential to learn, because who's going to teach you? You got to go get it yourself, and it's going to be off of books. How to Win Friends and Influence People. It is a classic. My son saw me buy these books by case and hand them out to people that worked for me over the years. So he goes to UCF, enrolls in business school, and calls me up one day and says, "Dad, you know that books you've been giving away to everybody? It's mandatory reading for this class." Wow. But I just use that as an example. I've read that book probably over 100 times. Okay? And whatever self-improvement that your heart gravitates toward, read self-improvements, because that's where it's at. Learning.
Yes, it's funny that you say that, because my mom last year, she bought a whole bunch of books for 3 Feet Away from Gold, The Alchemist, and there was another one. And she just gifted everybody Christmas books, essentially, which was, you know, it's valuable information. We had our my teenage nephews read them, and we asked them questions. It just kind of unlocks a level in their brain that's, it's in there, and you just see their potential, even at that age.
Be careful with things that's going to rob your time. Television, okay? People that don't add any value to your life. You know, that's the biggest thing that I see.
And so going on to the next phase, the earning phase, what should people be expected? Because, you know, we have a lot of age levels here. So for the first learning, what should people be doing to be welcoming of the earnings?
Hustle. Every day in Africa, a gazelle wakes up and says, "I gotta run. Because if I don't run, I'm gonna get eaten up alive." And every day in Africa, a lion wakes up and says, "I gotta run. Because if I don't run, I'm gonna starve." So whether you're the gazelle or the lion, you gotta run. If you don't run, if you don't hustle, if you're not persistent, you're not gonna get there. And time is so valuable, especially when you're young, because you don't want to live with regrets. You don't want to look back and go, "I should have done this, I should have done that, I should have taken that chance." And that's my advice.
And as far as the giving back, I know you touched base on that with George as well, and I think that it's a really important phase, you know, when we're trying to bring back, giving back to the community in all types of forms. Anything that you want to say about that? Because I know you did touch base on that.
You don't have to wait to get old to return. You can return in small ways, you know, to anybody that you come across, and I think that's so important, helping others.
And as far as mentorship goes, did you have a person in your life that you accounted as a mentor?
I've had several, and I get labeled sometimes as self-made. People say, "Oh, you're self-made." I go, "There's nobody that's self-made. Somebody came into your life and touched you, whether you realize it or didn't realize it.
Yes.
Somebody was along the path. I'm not self-made." Thank you. I continue to surround myself with people that are smarter than me. People that, the biggest thing I look for is people that are straight. People that are straight, you know, and people that are don't deviate from whether it's morally, ethically, you know, and I surround myself with those people and I try to learn from them. And that's the most important thing, I think.
Alrighty, and then we're just going to start shifting the conversation if everybody's okay with this. So just this far, and this will be the last one, as far as your accomplishments throughout your career, throughout your life, would you give us a few of them that you're very proud of?
I gotta be honest with you, I got to brag about my children. And that's to me, that's the measuring stick of my success of my life is who do I leave behind? Also employees, I take that back because I look at them as my children too. That's how I measure success of my life is how did I impact, who did I impact, and how, you know, what did I do for them? And that's to me, that's my success.
Thank you. And so as far as the restaurant business goes, can you touch base on what makes, you did touch base on what makes a good restaurant, but give us a little bit more of that essence.
Restaurant, what makes them successful?
What makes a good restaurant, essentially?
Well, I get that question asked a lot. And most of the time it's from failing restaurants. My relative or uncle or friend recommended that I talk to you. You're very successful. I'm in Melbourne, or I'm in Atlanta, or wherever I am. Can you help me do this? And most of the time what everyone's looking for is a match, silver bullet. There is no such thing as a silver bullet in life, period. I think it's a lot of little things that you have to bring together and gel into form. And for me and my company, I think putting our people first. And everyone talks about our people are first. Truly having the organization where people can count. Everyone wants, has anyone ever heard of Simon Sinek? In some of his writing, people want to belong. And people want to, if you're part of my team, you want to know that I got your back. No matter what, he's got my back. Right? There's a saying in my company, it says, if you go to jail, Fred will be the first one there to get you out. And it's true. I've been to Central County Jail. I know all the bail bondsmen. I got them on speed dial. If you go to jail, Fred's going to be the first one to come get you out. But on the way home, you want to open the car door and jump out because you're not going to want to hear from me. I think it's knowing that they can count on me, knowing that we're solid, knowing that we're there for them. That stability.
Yes. And I don't know if anybody knows this, but I actually met Fred because I worked at Chop House when I moved out to Florida for a few, maybe about 6 months. And just something that you can see, I never really visited the other restaurants to really know how they feel, but at least for Chop House, the essence was to really get to know the people that were coming in. And there's just a lot of regulars, so having that environment for people where people feel safe and they know that they're welcomed and you remember their drink order, that just makes, you know, a difference of an environment. I know everybody has been to a restaurant where nobody really knows you, even if you're in there almost every day of the week, right? So that really does make a difference. But I don't know, is there any aspiring restaurant owners in the crowd? No? Okay, so my follow-up question.
Smart people. You guys are really smart.
So my follow-up question was going to be advice that you would give a new restaurant owner, but
I think this one thing I'm about to say applies to whether you're a banker, not home health care, no matter what business you're in. Genuine hospitality. And that's our company mission. Our mission statement is really, really, really simple. Because I was really impressed with how you remembered your mission statement. It was pretty long and you remembered it. Oh, you're reading it?
I'm sorry. You caught me.
Our mission statement at FMK is really, really simple. To treat our guests with genuine hospitality. Because I want everyone to remember it. And I think hospitality can apply to any business you're in. Hospitality, all it is a warm smile. The way you came in, it's a warm smile, It's you knowing that I'm on your side. I don't care what business you're on. You apply hospitality to that business where the other person believes that they can count on you. That's hospitality, and it's worth everything. And I think it applies to every business.
We're talking about how many employees do you have?
We have 700 employees.
Can I jump in with a question there?
Yes, sir.
I was talking to you earlier, and you said you invest a lot in your top managers, and you're very picky as to what, you didn't use that word, I put that in there, but you were very picky as to what you have. Tell me a few things that you look for in a character of a person that's going to come in and run a multi-million-dollar restaurant for you. What are some of the core things that are important to you, other than the basic common restaurant knowledge?
I don't recommend this, but I dive in deep. I don't want to know about your experience. I can care less where you used to work at. I don't care what kind of food costs you ran, what kind of labor you ran, how much money did you make at your last job. And to me, I want to know about your character. I want to know where you were born, how'd you grow up, and there's no right or wrong formula either. I'm just picking up and reading between lines. And who are you? That's all I care about. Who are you? Who is the person I'm hiring? What's your character? What's your core like? And that to me is the most important thing. And then as you move up in my organization, if I hire you based on all the things look good, and for you to move up, I want to meet your spouse. Because it's going to tell me a lot more. It's going to tell me how far I can move you up. Because if you have the support at home, I can count on you. I'm not saying you should have a spouse. I'm just saying if you do have one, I want to make sure that person is not working against me.
Right.
You know, by whispering garbage in your ear. You know, I want to make sure I got you all the way. So.
We talked once, we said, and I said 90% of your happiness is going to be determined by the person you choose to marry or be with.
Amen to that.
So, I think you probably agree with that.
Yes, sir. Yeah. There's a guy who wrote a business article in Orlando Sentinel. His name was Dick Morrow. I'm not sure if you remember him or not. Dick Morrow was a writer for the Orlando Sentinel for 30 years. He wrote a business column. And he was going to retire. And everyone says, what is Dick going to say in his last column? What's the last thing Dick's going to say in his last column? And there was a big anticipation. And that was his last advice. Pick the right person. And don't get divorced.
Okay, and now kind of shifting over into the business again. So I know that you're talking on the basis of scalability. How was that step from going into just managing one single restaurant to jumping and having that leap of faith to start opening another one? Was it hard? Was it?
I've never seen it as hard. I think you can't be afraid. When you're in business, you just cannot be afraid. You just got to do it, and you got to give it everything you had. For me, the scale is the team behind it, who's helping develop there and get there, and that's what's able to allow us to grow where we are, is the team.
Have you been really good at delegating tasks?
I'm a great delegator. Well, there's a difference between delegating and dumping.
Yeah.
Dumping is dumping everything on you, and delegating is let's work together to get this thing done. That's a line that people, a lot of bosses don't understand the separation. Where the truth is,
And systems, as far as systems, which ones did you have to incorporate?
I'm a true believer in systems. Everything I do, from the moment I wake up, everything I do in my personal life, in my professional life as well. Everything is about systems. So, in your personal life, I'll give you an example, don't laugh. But my clothing is very simple. Because in the morning, I don't want to think about it. You know? I'm going to wear the same type of clothes every day because it takes a lot of energy. For ladies, it's different. I get that.
It does take a lot of energy, right?
It takes a lot of energy. But I'm just using that as an example, as a very small example of systems. I create everything I do, there's a system for it. And that's the way to scale. Is you gotta have systems, and you gotta have great systems. You gotta have idiot-proof systems, failure-proof systems to make sure you get there. So backup for backup for backup.
What is your process for implementing a system? Do you walk through the steps of how you would put a system in place?
Communication is the most important thing. Making sure everyone that's involved understands what the system is that you want to accomplish. And understand not just how to get there, but why are we going here? Why are we doing this? Making sure they understand what the big picture looks like at the end. You know, I was having this conversation with one of my area directors who has 5 or 6 restaurants under his leadership. And I've always said to him, envision what the finished product's going to look like. So the other day, he's sitting with his 14-year-old son, and the son's not saying anything. He says, what are you doing? He goes, Dad, I'm daydreaming about that truck I want to buy. He goes, what do you mean? He goes, you told me envision the goal. So I think making sure they understand what the finished product's going to look like and and why are we doing it, and what benefit. Well, everyone wants to know what's in it for me. Everybody wants to know, and I think that's a key to success. Is if I'm going to hire you, I got to make sure what's in it for you, not just money, but give you a vision of what the future looks like. You know, and make you believe that, and that's leadership.
And as far as the systems, I know that for having a restaurant, you need a system for serving for everything.
Everything.
Yes. So do those change once you scale and once you have different environments? Because every restaurant essentially feels like a different environment. Everybody kind of has their personalities. Systems get translated differently. How does that get translated in formal scaling?
Systems has to change because the world changes. The restaurant business that I'm in today is very, very different than it was when I first started out. We didn't have an Excel spreadsheet. Forget Excel. We didn't have all the software that we have now. You got to be an IT person to run a restaurant these days, you know. And I'm just using that as one example. Systems change, and you got to make sure communication is the most important part of making sure the systems are advanced.
Anything else that you would like to touch base on the struggles or the good parts about scaling?
No, I think I've covered it all.
Perfect. And you were touching base on it, but essentially, how do you do to be able to keep updated with all the new restaurants coming into the area to kind of stay relevant and make sure that FMK keeps its...
I'm going to put somebody in charge of it. Somebody's got to own it. Somebody's got to own that P&L. That's what I call it. Whose P&L? It's your P&L. It's your financial statement. Somebody's got to own that P&L, and somebody's got to own that person that's on top of that, making sure they hold that person accountable to that P&L. So it's layers of people. That's how I've gotten to where I am, making sure we have systems in place to grow, and there's layers of management.
And so how does FMK Group deal with all of the new competition?
Competition is good. Because competition is good because otherwise no one's there to challenge you. Competition is really good, and for a couple of reasons. People say, why do you want to go to this area? Because so-and-so they own it. Well, good. If they're doing 10 million, I want a piece of it. Mm-hmm. If they're doing 1 million in sales and revenue, there's nothing for me to grab. Right. So that's how I look at competition and grabbing the business.
So what's in the works for FMK Group?
Well, we've got a sports bar that's been announced, which Bruce knows about, and Villages has made me sign an agreement that I don't discuss anything coming up any further because they want to announce it, they want to announce it, they want to control the message and how it goes out. But we've got quite a few more restaurants planned in the villages. And who knows, maybe outside the villages again, but never Orlando again.
Never.
Brad, I have a question for you. So you mentioned control, and it was actually a thought I had. When you were growing, how did you get the trust in your people to let go of control of some of the things? Like you just said, this person has their P&L that they're responsible for and they own it. How did you get to the point in your career where you were like, okay, I can let go of control?
Well, he who can be trusted with little can be trusted with a lot. Why are you laughing? And I think it starts off with a little trust, and then at some point you got to trust. So, and people will let you down. I guarantee you're going to come across people that are going to let you down. And but don't get tangled up on that. Don't lose faith. Just because someone let you down doesn't mean everyone's going to let you down. And building a relationship with that person. I have a guy who takes care of all my facilities, and I joke with him all the time. I said, Josh, I'm not mad at you. And he goes, oh, please don't say you're disappointed. Just whatever you say, don't say disappointed. Because nobody wants to disappoint anybody. You really don't want to, nobody wants to disappoint anyone. That's just in our nature. We don't want to disappoint people. That's how we're built. But you got to set that out there as expectation. And when I tell you this is what I need from you, and I'm counting on you, and you know that I'm counting on you, now there's a little bit of trust built in here, and you don't want to let me down. And then immediately rewarding that person. Our periods, we're on 13 4-week periods accounting. So instead of 12 monthly calendars, we're on 13 4-week periods. Our weekends on Sunday night, midnight. Monday morning, every 4 weeks, I issue bonus checks. Because I don't want to wait to end of the quarter, end of the month, 6 months from now. Because I trusted you, you delivered, and I can't say, I'll pay you next week, next month. I got to pay you now because you're counting on me. There's a trust in here, and I make sure we make those bonus schedules every single week, or every single period.
Yes, I like that. And I only have one last question for you, so if anybody has any questions, start warming up. But the last question was, we started sort of a tradition from last event that the last speaker leaves a question for the next speaker. So the question from the last speaker is, what are the ingredients that led you to take the leap, and what was the mentality behind getting started?
A lot of craziness. You got to be in a restaurant business. You got to have something wrong with it to begin with. What are the steps that? Ingredients that
got you to take the leap.
Again, craziness, because I just believe I can do it. First was mentioned to me some location that I picked up. There was a failure after failure after failure. I just believed I can do it. And you gotta believe in yourself. That's what I think it is. You gotta believe in yourself. If you don't believe in you, who will? And you gotta come up with a formula, the magic sauce. Whatever it is, the need. Figure out what the need is and fulfill the need. How do you know what the need is? You look for it. You keep your eyes open. You look for those opportunities. Whether it's, for example, what does this corner really need? Is it a seafood restaurant or is it an Italian restaurant? What is the need for this area?
So you're actually touching base on that, and that's a pretty interesting one because a lot of professionals and entrepreneurs will say, do your market research first, and a lot of them will just say, take the leap, get started.
You gotta take a leap no matter what, but you gotta do some research. I mean, in my opinion, there has to be some research.
Calculated risk.
Calculated risk, exactly. But at some point, you have to take the leap. And you gotta think big. If you're gonna dream, Don't dream small. You truly want to grow your company, dream big. Dream wild. Don't have small dreams. Dream big. That's my thoughts on it.
And one last question, I'm sorry, I'm giving, I lied. But I've been asking a lot of entrepreneurs this question because it's just been a hot topic that's been going around. And it is the idea that you should either focus on one single item when you're, in that phase of learning, like pursue, in construction, or pursue real estate, or pursue whatever field you're in, compared to just build your skills up and do as many things as you can.
Focus. Focus on what you want to do. Don't try to chase everything. Because if you chase everything, you're not going to get anything. Focus on what you want to do and chase it. Don't try to grab everything. Don't try to be jack of all trades and try to do everything under the sun, because you won't get there, in my opinion.
Perfect. Now, I'm sorry, does anybody have any questions?
Sir.
Could you give us your definition of culture and share with us in many ways how you create a culture within your restaurants?
Great question. Culture is key ingredient to building a successful business where there's employees involved. Because if you don't have culture, you have nothing. Culture is who you are, your ID, your DNA. And how do you build culture? It takes time. It takes a lot of time. What makes culture? Trust. The people have to trust you and believe in you. And I think that's a key ingredient, is trust in building a great culture. Your people have to believe in you and what you're trying to do. So back to our mission statement, genuine hospitality. There's a tagline underneath that. Mission statement is very simple. Provide genuine hospitality. But we achieve that through the spirit of our people. And that comes in culture.
Anybody else?
Yes, sir.
So I was wondering, what are some things that you do every day with no exceptions?
I pray every day, and I read my Bible every day. That's every single day.
Do you have any routines, like a morning, night routine, things that you do?
My morning routine, the first hour and a half of my day, don't talk to me. This is my time. And I read my Bible and I pray. That's my routine of anything. The most important, I think.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to say thank you for everything that you said today. I wrote down so much because everything resonated with me. Number one, thank you. I do the fast track program here, so we're just basically, we've been in business for 4 years, so we're trying to make sure every foundational level has been taken care of. So it's kind of like we jumped before we planned because the opportunity came.
Good.
Is it successful?
Good.
Yes. Yes, but we're trying to now, fine tune it.
Right.
But I wanted to just kind of commend you on one thing you said, mainly about hospitality. I worked in the restaurant industry for a long time. The last restaurant I worked at was Cheesecake Factory. And if you've ever been to a Cheesecake Factory, it almost seems like you've been to the same one if you go to separate ones, because the culture is there. The systems are there. You have to be able to do the system, and you have to have the genuine hospitality. And that definitely translates into my business. I'd love to be that person that they can call on. They can say, you know what, I depend on you, I can trust you, and I can count on you. And that's basically how I'm building a business at this point. Myself and my partner are building a business at this point, just by being open and honest and telling people why they're doing what they're doing. So the why, the hospitality, all that, it definitely it translates into relationships, and it translates into, finances too. Right? It definitely translates
Eventually,
into relationships.
absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And that's just what I want to say. Thank you for that.
Absolutely.
I wanted to bring that up.
Alrighty, anybody else has any questions?
Fred, if you had to look, go ahead. If you had to look back at yours, I like listening to how people answer this, but if you had to talk back to yourself, when you were off on your own, I think you said you were
17, 12.
12,
When I left home,
16,
17.
You got that job at McDonald's. If you could look back to yourself today and tell yourself something, what would you tell yourself? In the scope of life and, business, entrepreneurship, and survival.
I'm not sure if I would change anything differently. Maybe spend a little bit more time with my kids, because I truly feel like I missed out on some of that. But I don't think I would change anything, honestly, because I think in looking back, some of those lessons were valuable. And as hard as they were, the fall, George, you know how big that company got. The fall from that company, my face met the pavement hard. But I got to tell you, that was the best lesson I ever learned. So can I, before you get to that question, can I just tell a quick story? So it's 1986 now. I'm 26 years old, or 25 years old, and I have not seen my parents. So I decide to go see a politician, write him a campaign contribution check, and said, I need you to get my parents here. I really want to see them. Because I couldn't go back. Because I would have to go drafted into the army, blah, 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 blah. It's complicated. Brought my parents here. I would have just been married. I had built a brand new house at 25 years old, 25, 26, on Royal Oak Country Club in Titusville. Brand new house. My dad came here. He was really proud of me. One day we were going for dinner. After dinner, we're going for a walk. And my dad's just going on, bragging about me. Wow, I can't believe what you built. Blah, blah, blah. So proud of you. Somehow the subject of mortgage came up. My dad is from the old country. We don't have mortgages over there. Because houses get passed down, we don't have mortgages. My dad said, what's a mortgage? And I explained to him what a mortgage was. And he said, wow, I thought you said you own a house. I said, that's my house, Dad. He goes, hold up. Now, my dad was really a smart businessman. He had made a lot of money in his lifetime, but lost it all during the war. He goes, son, let me ask you a question. Do you have a mortgage or do you own it? I go, I own it and I have a mortgage. No. Which one is it? I said, I have a mortgage. He goes, wow, I really thought you made something out of yourself. At that point, I didn't want to tell him about the car payments. Well, you know what? My dad was right. My dad was right. And don't try to get out of debt as fast as you can. Stay out of debt. Some debt's necessary, but stay out of debt. That's my advice.
Fred, thank you for being with us tonight. I'm very grateful that you shared your time and your journey with us. I have two questions for you.
Yes, sir.
In two quotes, okay, if you don't mind. The first one is about the first part of your journey, from age 10 to 17. Can you kind of pinpoint an individual or maybe a group or somebody while you were disconnected from your parents and so far removed that impacted you to stay the course to help you develop out to what you've become?
Gosh, there's so much other thing. People say I'm self-made and they go, how can you say you're self-made? And I think back and I say, God put some amazing people in my life. Bob Conigliero was the assistant manager at McDonald's who hired me and gave me a chance. And another restaurant manager that I worked for after that was instrumental, that really had my back.
That's interesting. You remind me of a good friend and a mentor of mine who had challenges in his beginning of his journey. And I asked him one time, I said, how do you summarize that? How do you break that down in your thinking? And he said, with every adversity, there's an equal or greater opportunity for those who change their thinking. And so, and you can always relate it back to someone who influenced that thinking.
Absolutely.
The second question is, in your second half of your journey to where you started saying you read books and you studied personal growth and development, things like that, did you find, and I have a privilege of working with a lot of entrepreneurs, and they always can dial in on this, that somewhere in their journey, I would say their personal growth and development was in direct proportion to how their businesses were growing. When they stopped growing as an individual, they got off track with the business growth. And I don't mean like the logistics or mechanics, but really developing out that culture.
They lost their heart for their business. Is that what you're saying?
I am. And, you know, just a thought along that, my mentor, an entrepreneur like yourself, says to me, jump and build your wings on the way down.
Yeah, exactly.
And so you got to study and research, but sooner or later you take that step and you go get it done.
Yeah.
Thank you again. Great story.
My pleasure. Thank you. Yes, ma'am. Yes.
So it's our last meal. We're going to one of your restaurants. Where are we going? What are we having?
I eat the same exact thing every single day. And that's a Karimipour at Harvest. And it's not the best meal in our restaurants because some people look at it and go, that's your favorite meal? And I go, that's my favorite meal. Karimipour Harvest.
What is that and why is it your favorite?
Well, I think it has rice, and being from the Middle East, rice is a staple. So,
They also have a killer lamb shank at Chop House, and I really love lamb. So, any lamb lovers out there, try it out.
Yes, ma'am.
So just given, how you came up and how you really started to kind of build this for yourself, do you see that in employees that you hire, and have you given someone opportunity to come up with yourself?
A lot. I see good in you. I see in everybody. My starting point is this is a good person, and I'm going to help them until you prove me otherwise. So every single person that is part of our organization, for any length of time, especially management, you have to find good in people, and you have to cultivate that goodness and help them become better and greater.
We have a couple of minutes for any more questions if we have any, but it'll be the last two.
I'm going to go a completely different direction. Favorite or go-to Bible verse?
That's a hard one. That's a hard one. I've been preaching to my vice president of operation is when words are many, sin's not too far. But it's so hard. It's so hard to come up with one Bible verse that's going to. But right now, that's the one I've been talking about. When words, because really we talk a lot, and how much of it is really necessary.
Right.
And just make and I use this now. I'm talking a lot about analogies. And so, if you're going to hit the hammer with the nail, make sure you make a good contact and drive that in, because you can simply go like this. It's a lot of energy wasted. Just make sure you have the impact. And that's why I said, just choose your words wisely, and don't, because after a while people turn you off. If you just talk, people turn you off. So, but I can give you lots more. That's been on top of my head.
So one of your pieces of advice was to surround yourself with people who are smarter and higher up than you. So how do you get into a group like that if you're kind of like, at the bottom of the totem pole and you don't have as much to offer? So why would they want to help you? How do you get into a group like that?
I think that's a good question. I think there's something in all of us that wants to help other people. But does not necessarily mean people that are working for you. Surround yourself with people that are working for you. It could be someone, an older person you meet at a coffee shop that you can seek advice from, or somebody that you. When you go over 55, 60 years old, it's all about giving back. At least for me, it's all about giving back. It's all about returning. I've told my kids I'm not going to get anything. I said, I just want to let you all know what you got so far is it. So it's all about giving it all back. So, real quick story about Bob Canigliaro, the assistant manager at McDonald's. So I'm in Chicago with my daughter, my oldest daughter. We're shopping. And we're talking about the story I had, Dad, what happened here, what did you need? She was trying to understand where I come from. And she said, Dad, whatever happened to Bob Canigliaro? I said, I don't know. She goes, have you ever tried finding him? I said, no, I've never tried finding him. She said, give me your phone. I didn't think about it. Sure enough, We got a mutual friend.
Nice.
So I get a hold of Bob. I wonder if he even remembers me. Called him up. Sure enough, he's a vice president of community relations for McDonald's, and he'd moved up over the years. And he remembered me. He remembered everything about me. He told me details that I even forgot. And all I have to say is because people want to invest in other people. People want to help you. And don't be afraid to ask for help. Everybody wants to give what they have. I shouldn't say everybody. A lot of people do, right, George? Yeah, you want to give back. And so Bob and I stayed in touch with each other. And Bob wrote a book, and he put me in his book. And he's actually coming to speak with my managers as a motivational speaker.
Glad you were able to reconnect.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I wanted to just elaborate a little bit on his question because I too was recently looking for mentors and wanting to find people that would be able to help me. And what my husband and I were looking for was just kind of looking at the great heights. And what we realized is that a lot of the times the person that you need might not be that great high person, but it could just be just another person that's in the group with you because essentially you got to take, and I don't know if you would agree with this, but you got to take kind of one step at a time. So from where you are now, there could just be somebody that's just that one step ahead of you that can teach you how to just get through that first step. And then eventually you'll be able to get to needing, the experts in the field, but just to kind of take
Stepping stones.
Yes.
The stepping stones. Those are the people that God puts in your path that can help you get to at least to the next level.
Alrighty, and okay.
Sorry.
Oh, okay, we got two more questions.
Go ahead, you're fine.
Mine is more of a comment. Thank you very much for being here.
Absolutely.
On behalf of the chamber, we really appreciate your time coming down. Personally, thank you very much for your story and confirming for me that I have lived my life on the right path. And finally, thank you very much as an Hotbed native for being the very first person I've ever met who went to that boarding school.
Oh, wow.
Do you remember the boarding school?
And proving that it is not a front for Al Capone and his members.
Wow.
It was a real school.
Wow.
I always told my aunts, you're crazy. That isn't a real school. It's a mobster front.
Wow.
So,
Wow.
If we had
Yeah, that was me, sorry.
Go ahead.
So, I don't know if this, I'm good. So he was touching on relationships and surrounding yourself with certain people. That's something that actually has been very important to me in my journey as a, banker. Thank you. How do you balance that? Because we talk about surrounding yourself with people who you can learn from, who can teach you things, who can possibly mentor you. But then how do you balance and then I guess maybe pick and choose who you're surrounding yourself with? Because, a lot of people nowadays, especially, you talk about having that tight circle. So your circle should only be allegedly, so many people. How do you balance that?
I think there's different circles.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, your inner circle is going to be tight,
Mm-hmm.
but then you can step out of that inner circle and go grab a piece of information from this person.
And step back.
And step back into your circle.
Okay.
But stepping out, you got to be careful because if I feel like that's all you want from me, you got to offer something back for that
Right.
person.
Right.
And some people don't need anything back. Some people do.
Yeah.
But you're there on a mission to grab
What you
information.
need and go.
And who are those people? Look for little things, little signs. Is this person straight?
Mm-hmm.
Is this person honest? Integrity? Is this something I can count on? Is this the pillar of the community? Is this who am I getting my advice from?
Right.
And making sure that person is solid.
Yeah, one of the greatest words of advice that I got recently was, if you don't want their life, don't take their advice. So that was good.
You're gonna like this one. My brother-in-law is a pastor, and to his comment, you know, about not worrying about, you know, being able to contribute anything, he always says, like with church, you have to go to where you're being fed. Get that fed with the restaurant thing.
Wow.
But, you know, but that's the point is, you don't have to worry about whether you can contribute at this time. Go get fed. You know, and if you're not getting fed, find other places where you are, like this, like Million Cups.
Absolutely.
You're going to get fed and you'll grow from those.
Alrighty.
Walk around like this, like a bird. Absorb, be like a sponge. I want to hear it. You know, I want to get fed. Exactly. You're right. Yes, ma'am.
So first, I want to say thank you for your story and letting us all know there are still good people out there that's willing to give others and I want to say thank you to George and Pam for creating this opportunity because, like you said, the pillars in the community offer something back to the people, like us starving entrepreneurs that's just looking for guidance, and it's nothing, they're not looking for nothing in return because on social media, everybody's about money. And nobody's willing to help if you're not willing to pay. But George and Pam and 1 Million Cups and Fast Track and things like that, there are resources out there that is available for a person coming to work at your restaurants. They have the ability to grow and have stability for their families. So thank you.
All right, and just to be cautious with everybody's time.
Go ahead. He's been wanting to ask a question for a while now. He's being shy.
How many hours a week would you say planning is effective to what you actually execute during that week?
How many hours a week do I work?
No. How many hours a week do you spend planning? Because you have like a multi-million-dollar restaurant business, so I'm sure you're not just going out and just doing stuff. You have to like lay it out. So
Planning every day, every hour, constantly thinking about how to improve things, how to make things more efficient. Creating efficiencies is extremely important in business. Constantly planning, it never stops.
So how important is it for a good entrepreneur to be able to adjust the sales by the minute?
It's extremely important to have your finger right here at all times. That's, George and I had the saying, but the daddy needs to come home. Right? You have to come to spend time with your business. You got to spend time with it. And it's 24/7.
I didn't understand the question really.
Oh, can you repeat what you mentioned?
The question, I think I got to disconnect. Sorry.
In the sense of, let's see exactly, what did I ask?
How important is it to adjust your sales?
In other words, the point I was trying to make is that in entrepreneurship versus, you don't have to be successful in life and be an entrepreneur. If that's what you choose to do, then we try to help with that. You can be successful as a teacher. You can be successful as a banker. If you're going to go in there and you're going to start off as a teller, well, you know what? You want to be the president at the end.
Amen.
And set that expectation. Okay. So you don't have to necessarily be an entrepreneur, but whatever you do, it's a constant bullet that's coming at you. Picture the people who fought in wars and they were ready for everything and they had a plan. And if you heard him when he started, he said he had a backup for a backup for a backup. One of the jokes I talk about when I talk to kids is I say you always have to have backups. When I was in high school for prom, I had 2 backups. And I'll tell you this truth, one time and now I had 0 backups for prom. But the point I wanted to make is you have to have a backup. And you have to think everything. Me and Pam, we sit down and before we go into doing something, we answer ourselves, what if they say yes? What if they say no? What if they say this in the middle? And we try to go through all aspects of it and adjust what we might be doing to get there. So the point is adjusting your sales while you're going like somebody sailing water.
Right.
So you don't pick a plan, you don't write a plan, a business plan, and that's it. It's not in my business plan.
Okay.
You're gonna fail.
I get you now.
You're gonna fail more than you want to.
Okay.
And that's where paranoia kicks in.
When you said sale, I thought S-A-L-E.
No, S-A-I-L.
Yes.
You're sailing a boat. You're
I'm like, I missed that whole part of my whole journey so far, because I can't adjust my prices and, that's what I thought you meant, like, you need to adjust your prices like right away, if I don't know.
But sales is very important, in my opinion, to be an ingredient. I don't know what you think, Fred, the successful entrepreneur. I mean, do you guys think he sold himself when he was here?
Yeah.
Fred, can you say he sold himself?
Yeah.
Don't you want to say to yourself, I want to go eat at one of these restaurants?
Yeah.
Okay. And that's important. There's some people who can't do that, and that's okay. And they make great people in the back. You know, so know where your right place is, and adjust all my.
I think when George talked about backup for backup for backup, I think some of that's paranoia that we talked about earlier. A little bit of paranoia is good. A little bit of paranoia is good. Mine was a little too much. I had a sign. Why the paranoid survive?
They say wake up every morning like somebody is sitting out there trying to figure out how to eat your lunch. His story was pretty much the same with the animals chasing the jungle, but the truth of the matter is that's what people want. They want to grab a share of somebody else. It's not personal, but they want to grab a share. USB wants to grab more share of business. Another bank wants to grab more share of the business. It's okay, but if you can pick up a little bit more than them, it's the person who's going to work the hardest. Downstairs in the lower lobby, some of you don't get to go in there. There's my favorite sign up there, and it says, to be the 1%, you got to outwork 99%.
That's very good.
Yeah.
That's my favorite.
That's very good.
That's your sale and sales.
And Pam, you had a question?
Well, I just have a question. You're so accomplished. Thank you. And like everybody says, thank you for being here tonight. In your next phase, and your giving back phase, but in the next phase of your business, where do you see yourself going? How many more restaurants? Do you see yourself slowing down? Do you have a slowdown plan, or are you just going to keep growing and growing? Just curious. Yeah, that's part of it.
Part of our growth plan with the villages was, as Mark Moore said, Fred, you're great, you're good at what you do, but tomorrow you get hit with a beer truck and you die. I got 12 restaurants that are going to be empty. Who's going to run this thing? So before we give any more restaurants, we want a succession plan. We want to know what's going to happen to you after you die. So I put a succession plan in. My goal is, before I retire, to get to 100 million in sales and revenue, and then hand it over to somebody else to run it. And I'm grooming that person right now. Who happens to know George on the way over here. I found out. He goes, "Who's he, Mark?" George was about. He goes, "I know him." Everybody knows George. So that's my goal before I hand it over, is to get to 100 million.
I think what you guys got to also understand about this guy that's sitting here, standing here. I can tell you 35 years ago or whatever it was, when I walked into that Sizzler restaurant and he was working, sweating, working like a dog, loading up that line, and I had to ask him a question, and he said, "Can you please give me a couple minutes? I need to get this done for our guests, and then I can take some time to talk." I had never been told no so nicely. That I wanted to wait, and I felt an obligation to wait. But the delivery of how he spoke today tells me that's why he's where he is. Because I've had plenty of managers who say, "Man, don't you know it's at lunch? Don't come here till after 2 o'clock." And things like that. So develop yourself all along the process. See what you see in people. Fred talks about looking for those little things. Just like you pick for your kids. Their friends. You don't want to hang around them. He's got this, that, they do this, they do that. I don't like their tattoos. I don't like this. I don't like that. But sometimes those things something that is very powerful. I mean, there's several things he did through the years that I look back and draw. How many stories?
How many stores?
How many stories have I told you
Yeah.
about this guy before you met him?
Yeah. I knew Fred before I met him.
So that's the kind of impact you want to have on somebody. And it doesn't have to be big. I haven't talked to him in 35 years.
Wow.
Picked up the phone, called him, told him who I was, and said, yeah, I know who you are. So it's you know, those are important things. People are watching you too. Your kids are watching you for sure.
People watching you. And look for little things. Look for little things in people, you know, just little signs, you know.
Yeah.
Thank you for what you do.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, guys. Thank you for listening to
Alrighty, well, does anybody have any announcements to make?
We have a chamber.
Oh, I think they're looking at you for tomorrow morning.
Well, I think it's been said, but we have our meeting tomorrow morning at 8:30 to 10 o'clock every Wednesday. So I think the easiest thing is if you just take your phones out, schedule 8:30 to 10 o'clock, and back at the Mega Workplace every Wednesday. Join us for the best business-to-business support program going today.
I agree. Alrighty, well, perfect. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Our next event is going to be on May 28th, and like I mentioned, Jared is going to be our speaker for that event. And you may know already that we have the two forms, so this was our panel form, but our next one is going to be more like a class, essentially, since we have our professor. But please join us. It's going to be great, and thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you. Good legend, very